A peaceful solution to the violent unrest engulfing Venezuela is possible, US Vice President Mike Pence has said. Speaking alongside Colombia's Juan Manuel Santos in the city of Cartagena, Pence's comments come off the back of President Trump's recent threat to use military action in Venezuela, which sparked condemnation in the region. Urging Trump to rule out such an option, Manuel Santos said the Latin American continent, every country in Latin America would not favour any form of military intervention in Venezuela. Any democratic transition of the Venezuelan regime must be a peaceful one. The visit by Pence kicks off a tour of the region.
The United States, Colombia, and free nations of Latin America will not be silent. Venezuela is sliding into dictatorship, and as President Trump has said, the United States will not stand by as Venezuela crumbles.
Earlier, Venezuela's communication minister announced plans for an anti-imperialist march. More than 120 people have been killed in violent protests in Venezuela since April. Despite that, there are fears Trump's recent threat may have given President Nicolas Maduro a political lifeline.
On the front line of the North Korea crisis, residents of Guam have staged a peace rally. Tensions between Pyongyang and Washington surged last week after the North said it was finalizing plans to launch 4 intermediate-range missiles towards waters off the U.S. Pacific territory.
This is a friendly gathering. A lot of people are stressed out. They got a lot of things on their mind, North Korea most especially, and the bombs that might potentially hit us, and to kind of unify the community and bring them out here and to think about something else instead of getting bombed.
The people here are peace-loving people, and we don't want war here. We don't want to harm anyone in North Korea, and we don't want harm to come to us or anywhere else in the world. And it's time that our leaders think about peace and think about ways to promote peace.
But President Trump's talk is far from peaceful, with warnings of fire and fury, and that the U.S. military is locked and loaded if North Korea acts unwisely. This amid concern that Kim Jong-un is close to achieving his goal of putting the mainland U.S. within range of a nuclear weapon.
As mourners gathered at the scene of a fatal car attack in Charlottesville, Virginia, the White House said President Trump's remarks condemning the violence were meant to include the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazi groups. Trump is under fire for failing to denounce the white supremacists thought to be responsible for the attack. Vice President Mike Pence was unequivocal.
We have no tolerance for hate and violence from white supremacists, neo-Nazis, or the KKK. These dangerous fringe groups have no place in American public life and in the American debate, and we condemn them in the strongest possible terms.
One person was killed and 19 people were injured on Saturday when a man drove into a crowd of people protesting a white nationalist rally. Jason Kessler, who organized the controversial Unite the Right gathering, was chased away by protesters, but later said supporters of the event would not back down. U.S. authorities have opened a hate crime investigation into the violence. 20-year-old James Fields is due to appear in court on murder and other charges stemming from the fatal car crash.
Security staff at Barcelona airport are beginning a continuous 24-hour strike over pay after voting to reject a company offer. The workers are stepping up their action after staging on-off stoppages for several weeks. The government has vowed to send in police to make sure the airport continues to function and wants an arbitration tribunal to rule on the matter. This national union official told Euronews the airport chose a private security company which pays workers less than the previous contractor, and he blames the government. It's been hiding without taking any action, he says, and when it has chosen to act, it's done so very disproportionately. I think that's ensnared a situation of greater tension towards the security guards, who in the end the government has designated as the guilty parties, whereas every day the union says the blame lies with the disastrous policies towards private security recruitment, and responsibility for that lies with the government. Madrid says it has no option but to send in the Guardia Civil because the strike threatens passengers, the country's image and security and public order. The union's looking to extend its industrial action to northwestern Spain. We've called a strike at airports in Galicia and obviously will be on the street and will call for all the mobilization that workers in the sector require. In Barcelona, security workers complained that as well as low pay, understaffing has brought overwork. The company and union are left to negotiate a loan after the regional Catalan government pulled out.
Syrians fleeing Raqqa say a lack of resources and the gruelling summer heat are making life increasingly hard. At one refugee camp north of the embattled Syrian city, severe shortages of water, food and medicine are being reported as more and more people attempt to escape ISIL. This man said, "We left Deir al-Azur on the 2nd of this month. We've been on the road for more than a week. We fled the airstrikes, the destruction, the airplanes. There was no food, no water, no bread. ISIL were forcing anyone between the ages of 15 and 40 to join them. We escaped from Daesh to come here. We spent a week on the road in the wilderness without food or water, and we've just arrived here at the camp." The mass exodus of Raqqa has been prompted by the advance of Kurdish militia on the city. Fighting among them, one British IT worker turned sniper.
Before I came here, I was, just living a normal life like everyone back home. I was fixing computers and I was a painter. And, I was just doing normal stuff like everyone else. And then I decided I wanted to come join YPG. I wanted to fight evil in Syria. And, as simple as that, really.
The US-backed offensive to recapture ISIL's de facto Syrian capital was launched in June. So far, the Kurdish-led forces are believed to have taken around half the city. British Army instructors have been charged with assaulting teenage recruits at a camp in Scotland in what's been described as the biggest ever abuse investigation to engulf the forces. They face 40 charges of battery, ill-treatment and actual bodily harm. All deny any wrongdoing. The abuse is said to have taken place at a battle camp near the town of Kirkcudbright. The 6 alleged victims, who were 17 at the time, claim they were punched and kicked, had their heads pushed underwater and animal dung smeared over their faces and into their mouths. In a statement, the British Army said 17 former recruit instructors have been charged and will face court-martial proceedings in September. The 3-year military police investigation reportedly cost €1.1 million. Legal considerations mean there will be no further comment at the moment. At least 18 people are now confirmed dead and 10 others wounded after a suspected terror attack in Burkina Faso. The assault took place in the capital Ouagadougou and saw gunmen open fire on diners outside a restaurant. For the moment, no group has claimed responsibility, though suspicion has fallen on jihadist groups. Authorities say the attack is now over, with 2 assailants dead. "We'd finished eating and left the restaurant," this witness said. "We were waiting outside and then we heard the shootings. After, I didn't see anything. Some people were telling us that they were robbed and then thrown out," this man said. "And then we saw the events. It's worse than we thought." The restaurant is said to be a popular haunt among expats, and one Turkish citizen has already been identified among the dead. Footage showed security forces exchanging heavy gunfire with the attackers, who were believed to be holding hostages.
The leader of Lebanon's Hezbollah has brushed off the notion of tougher US sanctions against the Iran-backed militant group, saying that it could not be harmed by the Trump administration. Addressing supporters via video link on Sunday as they marked the anniversary of the end of Hezbollah's 2006 war with Israel, Syed Hassan Nasrallah told the crowds that the American administration will not be able to damage the strength of his party. He also urged political leaders to accept the survival of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government. Although Hezbollah holds a firm place in Lebanon's parliament and cabinet, it remains classed as a terrorist group by Washington. President Donald Trump called the well-armed Shiite movement a menace last month, and US lawmakers are already pushing to increase the sanctions against them.
The British government is set to give more details of its aims for life outside the EU ahead of more negotiations later this month. Brexit Minister David Davis says London wants talks to move on to bigger issues. Several policy papers are expected, a response to criticism that Britain has seemed somewhat unprepared on certain issues. Two leading ministers have patched up their disagreements after cabinet infighting. In a joint article, they agree that aiming for a fixed transition period will not represent a backdoor attempt to remain in the EU. Meanwhile, former Labour Foreign Secretary David Miliband has joined the chorus of anti-Brexit voices calling for a second vote to choose between a negotiated deal and staying in the Union. A UK paper on the Irish border is expected ahead of the talks. The government hasn't commented on reports it's seeking a Schengen-like free movement area between Britain and Ireland. A major new survey suggests a majority of Britons, including former backers of EU membership, now favour so-called harder Brexit options, limiting the bloc's influence.
Televidente, non sta vai un break e ora non sta back e deporte con nostro collega Carl Reiter.
É programa com mais de uma década de informação.